For this first recipe, I'm making pumpkin soup. Well, it wouldn't be Crocktober without making pumpkin soup. The main ingredient that you'll need is a pumpkin, of course. I'm using a pie pumpkin, which is a smallish size. You'll want to cut it open and get all the guts and seeds out, just like you would if you were carving a jack-o'-lantern. I separated the seeds out to bake for a separate snack. I don't really like roasted pumpkin seeds myself, but my husband John does, so I saved those for him. All you do is rinse off the pumpkin guts from the seeds, then cover the seeds in olive oil, season them with paprika, garlic powder, salt, and pepper, and then bake them on a cookie sheet for 15 minutes at 350 degrees. I didn't film this, but it's easy to Google recipes for it. I cut the pumpkin into about 2-inch size squares, and this was the hardest part in all this. I ended up wasting some pumpkin just because I got tired of carving it, but it ended up being the right amount anyway, so any more would have been too much soup for us. I also cut 1 white onion, which made me cry a little bit. I also used 2 russet potatoes for this soup. I cut those up, skin and all, and tossed them into the crock pot with the pumpkin and the onion. I thought I was kind of clever using the crock pot lid as a transferring dish. I mixed in 5 cups of vegetable broth, but I found out that the entire container was about 5 cups anyway, so next time I'll just pour the whole container in and save myself some time. I eyeballed how much salt and pepper to add in, and let me tell you, I used far too much black pepper. My husband enjoyed it, but I thought it was way too peppery for my liking. I cooked the soup on low for 8 hours, and just before serving it, I added in about a cup of whipping cream. Then, using a handheld blender, I mixed the soup up until all the chunks were softened out. I held a towel over the crock pot to prevent splatter from getting everywhere. And there we have it, a yummy seasonal soup perfect for the fall time. There are all kinds of variations on pumpkin soup, so it can really be customizable to your liking. Well, I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and happy Crocktober! Next up, I made chicken with veggies. For this meal, I made seasoned chicken and veggies. I used frozen chicken breasts and frozen vegetables that included red pepper, snap peas, water chestnuts, onion, and celery. I had a fresh garlic clove and a few carrots that I added to the mix too. I started by pouring a can of chicken broth into the slow cooker as a base. Then I peeled and cut the garlic and tossed them in. Since I was using frozen chicken, I made sure that they stayed in the pot for at least 8 hours to thoroughly cook. The spices from my cabinet that I used were sea salt, coarse ground black pepper, parsley, onion powder, cayenne pepper, crushed red pepper, and McCormick poultry seasoning. If you don't like your food too spicy, then I'd omit the cayenne pepper and crushed red pepper. My chicken here did end up with a little bit more heat than I wanted, so next time I'll go lighter on the spicy seasonings. It was easy to toss in a bag of frozen mixed vegetables since it was prepared already. I washed and cut my carrots into larger chunks so that they wouldn't get too soft and mushy, and then I added them too. That was all the ingredients, so I closed the lid and let it do its thing. After a few hours, I checked in on how it was cooking and turned over my chicken and stirred the veggies a little. I didn't put spices on the other side of the chicken since there was plenty already, and stirring the pot distributed the flavors well enough. 8 hours later, I had a delicious, healthy, and simple dinner ready to eat. The chicken was moist and tore apart easily, and the veggies were a good texture too. Overall, this was a yummy crock-pot meal that was super easy to make. For this recipe, I made beef with water chestnuts and carrots. I'm going to start by putting some water chestnuts in the crock pot, and I'm going to put some of the water from the can in it as well. Here are my sliced water chestnuts, and I'm putting the entire can in the crock pot along with the water. The water in the can is going to help keep everything from drying out too much. So just kind of spread those along the bottom of the crock pot. They smell pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and add a second can in We like water chestnuts in this house. And those will just kind of line the bottom of the crock pot. And I'm gonna put meat on top of this. And here is the pièce de résistance of the crock pot meal. It is a whole untrimmed beef loin tri-tip, and it looks pretty good. It looks nice and fresh, and I think this is going to taste very good. Look at that beauty. This is going to be very good. For the seasoning, I'm going to add my ready-to-go beef marinade and seasoning. And this has salt, sugar, pepper, spices, herbs, garlic, and natural hickory seasoning. So I don't have any exact measurements for this. I usually just take a handful or, you know, a little sprinkling of it, and I just kind of sprinkle it over the steak. Try to get it nice and even. And then I give it a little patting just to make sure that seasoning really sticks on there. And I might have even put a little too much on there, so I'll put a less on the other side of it. So kind of pat it and gently rub it as well. Looks good. Now flip it over. Let's take that out of there. Flip it over. And I'll get the other side here as well. I'm just gonna wash my hands real quick. Okay. Just a good sprinkling of that. Distribute it all over. That looks good. Alright, and I'm just gonna grab this whole hunk of meat here and throw it in the crock pot over my water chestnuts. Beautiful. Beautiful. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and let this cook for an hour or two before I add the carrots, because I don't want my carrots to be too mashed or pureed, too soft. I want them to have a little bit of crunch to it. So I'm going to go ahead and let that meat cook with the water chestnuts on low for a little bit, and then we will revisit. This is how many carrots I'll be using. I'm going to chop them up and put them in the crock pot. The final result is super tasty beef with lots of flavor and soft carrots and crunchy water chestnuts. Pot roasting beef is the way to go. This last one was my favorite. I made homemade barbecue sauce with chicken. These are the ingredients I'll be using to make my homemade ketchup. I am using 6 ounces of tomato paste. I'm using some local honey, garlic sea salt, minced garlic, onion powder, lemon juice, some golden brown sugar, and salt. I'm going to go ahead and put this tomato paste in a mixing bowl. I'm going to do 1/4 a cup of honey. Some lemon juice, 1/2 cup. 1 teaspoon of sugar. That's probably good. One 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. less than 1/4 teaspoon of garlic sea salt. And then I'm not going to measure this, but just a little sprinkling of minced garlic, like that much. So that's all the ingredients for the ketchup, and now I just need to mix this all together. And there it is, my homemade ketchup. Now to transform this homemade ketchup into homemade barbecue sauce, I'm adding some Worcestershire sauce and a little bit of hot sauce. I'm adding in about 1/4 cup of Worcestershire sauce. Oops, it's a little messy. That's probably good. It's a little less than 1/4 cup, but that's plenty. And then 1/4 cup of this habanero hot sauce. And then mix that together with the ketchup base. And here is my homemade hot sauce. Let's have a little taste test of that and see how it is. Ooh, it's got a little spice to it. That's pretty good. I'm going to cut up this large red onion and add that into the crock pot. Okay, so I decided to just actually use half of the onion because there was so much. So I'm gonna put this other half in the refrigerator and make it for dinner tomorrow night. And we'll just do this portion here, this half an onion. And I'm just gonna add it directly into the sauce here, since it's all gonna go together anyway. Okay, here is the onion and the homemade barbecue sauce all mixed up together. And this is gonna go over the chicken in the crock pot. And it is frozen, so it's gonna cook in the slow cooker a little bit longer since it's pretty hard. Before I put the chicken in, I greased the crock pot with avocado oil, and I'm going to cover each layer of drumsticks with the barbecue sauce. And I'm going to turn that over to make sure that I get both sides. I'm just going to go ahead and fold it over like that. I'm going to add some more chicken. Pour some more sauce over that. I'll get the other side as well. Alright, I've got all the chicken in here covered in hot sauce. And now I'm going to turn that up on high for at least 6 hours. This is so good, I started eating it before I realized I didn't take a picture of it. It's falling off the bone, it's moist, it's delicious.
It's really good. Good job on that sauce. It's tasty.